Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. In this box office roundup video for the weekend that ended on October 20th, 2024, only one new movie made it into this weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office, but one of the top 5 movies had expanded from only a handful of theaters when it opened last weekend to nearly 1,000 theaters this weekend. And the cumulative total earnings for this weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office rose slightly to $51.6 million, which was a less than 1% increase over last weekend's cumulative total of $51.1 million. And that $51.1 million is actually higher than what I had reported last weekend, because once all of the actual revenues for last weekend's movies were updated, their total was actually more than $50 million. But this weekend is the 6th consecutive weekend that the cumulative total has been below $100 million. But before proceeding, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please leave a comment, please subscribe to support this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! And as of this weekend, the 3 highest grossing movies, both domestically and worldwide, for 2024 remained Disney Pixar's animated movie Inside Out 2, Disney and Marvel Studios' MCU movie Deadpool and Wolverine, and Illumination Entertainment's animated sequel Despicable Me 4. Domestically, Inside Out 2 ended its theatrical run, so its final domestic box office total remains at $653 million, and it's only one of 2 movies that have broken $600 million domestically in 2024. But internationally, the movie earned another $1.3 million to bring its current international box office total up to $1,041.5 million. Thus, globally, the movie's current global gross box office total rose by the same amount to $1,694.5 million, and it remains the first and only movie so far this year to break $1.6 billion worldwide. It also remains the first movie to have broken $1 billion worldwide in 2024, but it's not the only movie to have done so. Further, Inside Out 2 has now earned $248.9 million more than last year's highest grossing movie, Barbie, which earned $1,445.6 million. In terms of estimated break-even points, Inside Out 2 has a reported production budget of $200 million, which, when multiplied by 2.5 and 3.0 respectively, to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, as well as the additional costs of marketing the movie and other miscellaneous costs that the studio pays above and beyond the production budget, yields an estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million. Thus, Inside Out 2 has most definitely made bank. Domestically, Deadpool and Wolverine earned another $679,000 to bring its current domestic box office total up to $636.3 million, which keeps it as the second highest grossing movie domestically so far this year, and also only the second movie to break $600 million domestically. Deadpool and Wolverine is also the highest grossing R-rated movie domestically of all time by having surpassed the domestic box office earnings of 2004's The Passion of the Christ during the weekend of August 11th. Internationally, the movie earned another $1.6 million to bring its current international box office total up to $699.4 million. So globally, the movie earned another $2.6 million to bring its current global gross box office total up to $1,335.7 million, keeping it as only the second movie so far this year to break $1 billion globally. Deadpool and Wolverine is also the highest grossing R-rated movie worldwide of all time by having outperformed the global earnings of 2019's R-rated movie entitled Joker during the weekend of August 18th. In terms of the MCU, Deadpool and Wolverine is Marvel Studios' first movie since 2021's Spider-Man No Way Home to break $1 billion at the global box office and has risen to be the franchise's 7th highest grossing movie worldwide of all time by having surpassed the global box office earnings of 2013's Iron Man 3. And given that the movie's current global gross box office total is now only less than $1 million below the MCU's 6th highest grossing movie worldwide of all time, 2018's Black Panther, Deadpool and Wolverine is probably going to surpass that within the next 2 weeks. And with its reported production budget of $250 million, when multiplied by 2.5 and 3.0, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $625 million to $750 million. Clearly, Deadpool and Wolverine has already made bank. Domestically, Despicable Me 4 has also ended its theatrical run, so its final domestic box office total remains at $361 million. But internationally, the movie earned another $1.8 million to bring its current international box office total up to $602 million. So globally, the movie's current global gross box office total rose by the same amount up to $963 million, which keeps it as only the third movie so far this year to break $900 million globally. And for Despicable Me 4, with its reported production budget of $100 million, when multiplied by 2.5 and 3.0, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $250 million to $300 million respectively. Thus, Despicable Me 4 has already made bank. So this weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office included the following. Opening at number 1 was Temple Hill Entertainment's Paramount Pictures and Bad Feelings horror movie entitled Smile 2. Clinging to number 2 again was Universal Pictures and DreamWorks Animation's movie entitled The Wild Robot. Falling to number 3 was Dark Age Cinema's Fuzz on the Lens Productions and Bloody Disgusting's very low-budget horror movie entitled Terrifier 3. Clinging to number 4 after last weekend's domestic earnings were updated was Plan B Entertainment, Tim Burton, Warner Brothers, and several other companies' movie entitled Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And rising to number 5 was the French and British foreign movie entitled We Live in Time. Smile 2 opened by earning $23 million domestically and $23 million internationally for a global gross opening weekend box office total of $46 million. Domestically, The Wild Robot earned another $10.1 million to bring its current domestic box office total up to $101.7 million. Internationally, the movie earned another $29.6 million to bring its current international box office total up to $94.3 million. So, globally, the movie earned another $47 million to bring its current global gross box office total up to $196 million. Domestically, Terrifier 3 earned another $9.3 million to bring its current domestic box office total up to $36.2 million. Internationally, the movie has now earned $5.4 million to give it a global gross box office total of $41.6 million. And with its reported very low production budget of only $2 million, the movie has clearly made bank. Domestically, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice earned another $5 million to bring its current domestic box office total up to $284 million. Internationally, the movie earned another $5.9 million to bring its current international box office total up to $150.6 million. So globally, the movie earned another $14 million to bring its current global gross box office total up to $434.6 million. Domestically, We Live in Time earned another $4.2 million to bring its current domestic box office total up to $4.5 million. Internationally, the movie has now earned $98,000 to give it a global gross box office total of $4.6 million. I'm also tracking several other movies that are no longer in or never were in the top 5, which includes the following. Falling to number 6 in its third weekend in theaters was Warner Brothers Joint Efforts and Domain Entertainment's DC movie entitled Joker: Folie à Deux. Falling to number 8 in its fifth weekend in theaters is Paramount Animation's, Hasbro Entertainment's, and New Republic Pictures animated movie Transformers 1. Rising to number 14 in its 13th weekend in theaters is Deadpool and Wolverine. Falling to number 23 in its fourth weekend in theaters is American Zoetrope's and Caesar Films' sci-fi movie entitled Megalopolis, which was entirely funded, written, and directed by Francis Ford Copolla and stars Adam Driver. And falling to number 26 in its 10th weekend in theaters is Scott Free Productions and Brandywine's movie entitled Alien Romulus. Domestically, Joker: Folie à Deux only earned another $2.2 million to bring its current domestic box office total up to $56.4 million. Internationally, the movie earned another $21.8 million to bring its current international box office total up to $135.5 million. So globally, the movie earned another $26.7 million to bring its current global gross box office total up to $191.9 million. Domestically, Transformers 1 earned another $2 million to bring its current domestic box office total up to $56.6 million. Internationally, the movie earned another $3.9 million to bring its current international box office total up to $62.4 million. So globally, the movie earned another $7.6 million to bring its current global gross box office total up to $119 million. Since I already talked about the box office earnings for Deadpool and Wolverine, we'll move on to Megalopolis. Domestically, the movie earned another $73,000 to bring its current domestic box office total up to $7.6 million. Internationally, the movie earned another $400,000 to bring its current international box office total up to $3.9 million. So globally, the movie earned another $700,000 to bring its current global gross box office total up to $11.5 million. Domestically, Alien Romulus earned another $19,000 to bring its current domestic box office total up to $105.3 million. Internationally, the movie has no new reported earnings, so its international box office total remains at $245.1 million. So globally, the movie earned another $54,000 to bring its current global gross box office total up to $350.4 million. And Alien Romulus has already made bank and is currently the second highest grossing movie of the franchise. Now, to know whether these movies are going to break even or not, as well as how much money they might be losing, we need to look at their production budgets, which we can then multiply by 2.5 for a single mid-range estimated break-even point, or by both 2.5 and 3.0 for a broader estimated break-even point range. But if there's a reported value for the movie's marketing and distribution budget, we can add that to the movie's production budget for a total cost, and then multiply the sum by 2 to yield a more accurate estimated break-even point. For The Wild Robot, with its production budget of $78 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $195 million to $234 million. For Joker Folie Deux, with its reported production budget of $200 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million. For Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, with its reported production budget of $100 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $250 million to $300 million. For Transformers 1, with its reported production budget of $75 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $187.5 million to $225 million. For Megalopolis, with its production budget of $120 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $300 million to $360 million. For Alien Romulus, with its reported moderate production budget of $80 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $200 million to $240 million. So in this video, I am no longer projecting or never have projected what the final domestic or global gross box office earnings might be for the movies Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, Megalopolis, Deadpool and Wolverine, or Alien Romulus, because their expected future earnings are either currently too small, possibly non-existent, or going unreported, or their projected earnings aren't much higher than their current earnings. Of course, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Alien Romulus have already all made bank. But for Megalopolis, with its reported earnings of $11.5 million and its estimated break-even point range of $300 million to $360 million, the movie currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $288.5 million to $348.5 million in global gross box office revenue. Then by dividing the global gross box office revenue losses by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, the affected studios currently stand to lose the following. For Megalopolis, American Zoetrope and Caesar Film currently stand to lose around $144.3 million to $174.3 million. And that now brings us to the movies whose final domestic and global gross box office revenues I am currently projecting, which includes The Wild Robot, Joker Folie Deux, and Transformers 1. For The Wild Robot, using a range of possible average weekly drops from 30 to 40%, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $127.8 million at the low end, $134 million at the mid-range, and $142.1 million at the upper end, which is higher than last week's projection. And using the movie's current domestic share of 51.88%, which is lower than last week's, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $246.4 million at the low end, $258.3 million at the mid-range, and $273.9 million at the upper end, which is higher than last week's projection. So given the movie's estimated break-even point range of $195 million to $234 million, it would appear that the movie's chances of fully breaking even and making bank have improved considerably. For Joker Folie à Deux, using a range of possible average weekly drops from 30 to 40%, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $62.6 million at the low end, $65.2 million at the mid-range, and $69.6 million at the upper end, which is lower than last week's projection. And using the movie's current domestic share of 29.41%, which is lower than last week's, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $216.8 million at the low end, $222.7 million at the mid-range, and $230.5 million at the upper end, which is also lower than last week's projection. So given the movie's estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million, Joker Folie à Deux is a definite flop and may lose as much as $269.5 million to $383.2 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Warner Brothers' joint effort and Domain Entertainment may lose somewhere on the order of $134.7 million to $191.6 million. And this range of losses is among the highest so far for 2024, but it's not actually the biggest flop for the year. That honor continues to remain with the movie Argylle that premiered on February 2nd. For Transformers 1, this is the 8th movie in the Transformers franchise, though it's an animated movie and not live action. Still, if we assume that its box office earnings could have an average weekly drop that might fall within plus or minus one standard deviation of the franchise average of 29.7%, with a standard deviation of 8.47%, that creates a possible range of average weekly drops from 21.23% to 38.18%. And using that range, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $62.6 million at the low end, $65.2 million at the mid-range, and $69.6 million at the upper end, which is more narrow than last week's projection. And with the movie's current domestic share of 47.58%, which is nearly the same as last week's, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $131.5 million at the low end, $137.1 million at the mid-range, and $146.4 million at the upper end, which is also more narrow than last week's projection. Thus, it would appear that Transformers 1 is a flop and will likely lose somewhere between $41.1 million to $93.5 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Paramount Animation, Hasbro Entertainment, and New Republic Pictures currently stand to lose somewhere on the order of $20.6 million to $46.7 million. So as of this weekend, Joker Folie à Deux and Transformers 1 are definite flops, while The Wild Robot appears to be joining Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, Alien Romulus, Deadpool and Wolverine, Inside Out 2, and Despicable Me 4 as all having made bank. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed to support this channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.